Now, obviously, what I've done there is quite extreme, yeah, and I've sort of taken it in a unexpected direction. And as I said, it doesn't matter whether I like it or not in the future, because I've kind of experimented. And I mean, by the time of this over here, it's amazing how adaptive human beings are, and I kind of become almost used to this sort of tempo. Now, what's interesting is which is more right, because when I first heard this thing together, it just sounded terrible, all wrong. But I'm kind of hearing it differently. So which is right? Is the one where it's too fast wrong, or is the one where it's not too fast wrong? Maybe both of them are right. Yeah, and maybe what we want to hear, what we like, is just what we expect to hear. So essentially, you don't have to go this far in terms of what you actually do with your style splurge. So in a sense, if you look at what I've done here, I've taken, I guess, Gabba, early progressive house, a Mozart sonatas, and Vangelis-like synths, yeah, Blade Runner-like synths, yeah, and I've mashed them together. Is it good? I don't know. It might be rubbish. But what it is certainly something that I find extremely interesting to play with, something interesting to experiment with, and something that is going to help me move forward with my own music, because I'm doing something which I've not heard before. I mean, how many times and I'm not saying this because I'm some kind of musical genius, because I'm basically just randomly putting elements together. It's not that at all. It's just that I'm not being constrained by what the world has said. This is music, and and these things go together. And I'm not being constrained by that. I'm not being constrained by my quality judgments in any given moment. So I'm making something that I've not heard before. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like other things. So some people have said it sounds like a movie trailer. I mean, I don't know how many movie trailers have had a Gabba kick underneath it, but but anyway, maybe a few. But in pulling those elements together, I mean, not so much the Gabba kick, although actually this guy is a bit of an obsession of mine right now. I mean, he's definitely going to go on my musical history list, but it's a fairly recent one, probably a year now, and he does kind of it's kind of like ambient Gabba in a way, and not all of it, but some of it. So so arguably the Gabba isn't from my musical history, but it kind of is at the same time in my recent musical history. But in doing that, I've not been constrained by anything other than my own musical history. And can you see how that could be useful to you as a music maker, to actually, instead of going by the rules that a bunch of people have, I mean, they didn't make them. It's like, it's just a load of people who kind of got together and say, this is house music, this is electronic music, that's too fast, that's too slow, that doesn't fit here, that's horrible, that's wrong. Yeah, we've kind of collectively just almost walked into that. How about we start to think, well, what would my music be? Because arguably this right now is it's kind of more me than if I went, and I don't know, house might be different because I did house for so long, but in a sense it's more a kind of fuller expression of me, because the Gabba kick comes from a year ago. Progressive house comes from the early 90s. The Mozart sonata comes from when I was 9. And the Vangelis, I can't remember when that came out, but it's probably when I was at school sometime. Right? So it's kind of an expression, in a sense, of Oops. Didn't mean to do that. I don't know why the buttons aren't working on this. Anyway, so it's an expression of my musical history. So in a sense, it's kind of more an expression of me than if I went and wrote in a genre. So yeah, as I said, this isn't me saying you must go and kind of completely blow the doors open, but just using this kind of way of listening to the music from your past and experimenting with it in the splurge is a way that you can over time develop your own unique sound.